Jonathan Laws, Pete Bright,
Here.
David Veradall,
Here.
Gary Carver.
Here.
Gary Carver's here?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we have 4, Heather.
Okay, great. I know Clay had talked earlier about possibly putting off electing a chairman of the committee until we can meet in person. What does everyone feel about that before we get started?
That's a good idea.
That's fine with me.
Okay, I mean, we only have one thing on the agenda. So, all right, so we'll go through that. However, we do have, I believe the minutes were sent out from the last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved. Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Please see the attachments which are privileged to.
So that was
Okay,
Pete and David?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I believe we'll have to do a roll call, April, because we're doing it virtually.
Okay. Barry Ford, Clay Blazer,
Yes.
Terry Dawson, Jonathan Laws, Pete Bright,
Yes.
David Veradall,
Yes.
Gary Carver.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the only thing on the agenda tonight is the discussion of the compactor 10-year plan from GFL.
Before we start on that, if you're not talking, can I ask that you mute yourself? That way April can get everybody, because we hear sometimes feedback and sometimes the TVs and things like that. So I appreciate it.
I think she's meeting you, David, with Aubrey.
I was meeting your plate, Forrest. And we don't all have pork chops.
Well, now we're all muted. Somebody has to talk.
Okay, I have something to say from the Solid Waste Board. We had our meeting last Thursday, and Mark Cathy from McGill Associates came and spoke to us, and he proposed that they do a study for us to see what the feasibility is of continuing as we are versus making a transfer station at the landfill versus doing a full-on landfill. He said the landfill plans that we have right now will last for about 15.7 years. So that's by no means sustainable or really long-term. And what we're doing right now is way too expensive at $80,000 to $100,000 a month to haul off our trash. So I don't have the answer on what would be financially best for our county, and they're going to send us a proposal of the different options of what could be put into that study, but I feel like we're not in a position to make any decision on the compactors or whether we're going to do a transfer station with like a large landfill compactor until we dig deeper and get more information.
Well, I saw those, or I mean, I heard that on the news this morning, and I talked with Terry a little bit about what you just had kind of gone over, and I know that is some of the concerns. I do know that we had looked at some stuff earlier, like what GFL was coming to us with was just on these particular compactors and like what that was going to look like now. And I do know Forrest made a comment down here in the chat that $85,000 that you're speaking for is for our class 4 waste only. And my understanding is that this proposal that we have would kind of deal with would deal with everything. Is that correct? I mean, somebody who's more up to date on that with me, Mayor, is that what you understand? or Heather's, whoever's.
Well, if you don't mind me speaking, Clay, the proposal for the compactors is what's currently, we service with front load cans, which is separate from the C&D landfill. So our proposal for the compactors themselves, on the 5 and 10-year option, is just for the convenience sites, which are separate than your landfill. We did include a proposal for a 575 HD compactor to go at the landfill in case y'all wanted to just not open the landfill and transfer the waste through a compactor to our landfill on that regard. But the main meat of this proposal is on the convenience sites, which is totally separate.
I understand that, but that really doesn't answer the question. When you spoke of $85,000 a month, is that $85,000 for the total bill for transport, class 2 and class 4? Or is that 85,000 what we're spending extra to bring out of the landfill site since we are not permitted?
The 85,000 right now is covering both. It's covering the solid
That's
waste.
everything.
Yes.
That's everything.
Yes.
Yeah, it's everything. And I have a bill in my hand from last month. And that is everything. That includes the pickups, the can pickups at the convenience centers, the compactor pickups at the convenience centers, which is class 1, class 3, 4, whatever C&D is. And then we also have the extra C&D that we're picking up right now because we can't put anything in the landfill. That also includes pickups at the other county buildings, the highway department, the courthouses, the schools. It covers everything.
Do we have a number on how much exactly it is costing us for just the landfill waste that we're having to pack out now?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me pull it up on my computer.
Write this down.
No, David,
Hey,
you're not.
what's
not
that?
on mute. You're not on mute.
Oh, I'm not.
Whoever just asked you if you're on mute, you're not. Just so you know. I didn't want you to say anything.
Okay, so last month, being October, in October, it was roughly around $16,200 that we have hauled out of the Cobb County landfill. That's disposal and hauling expense.
Steve, does that include the extra containers that are at the convenience centers that are picking up C&D?
You mean for the bulk items?
Yes.
The 40 yards.
Right. No, it does not. Give me 1
Very
second.
good question, Heather.
I think if you include that, Steve, I'm not trying to step on your toes, and I'm curious to see if your number kind of matches mine. I'm looking more in the 20,000 range, 25,000 range once we start adding all those containers in.
I would say you're probably very close to that, but I can check it real quick.
That would be my understanding, because I think it all funnels through the same type of system there, that it's all going into one of those haulers that y'all take from the convenience centers.
Okay, I've got for October an additional right around $8,000 just for the bulky items. Keep in mind that the containers that are at Parrotsville that are getting hauled quite a bit are not for the C&D. It's mostly raw garbage. And that's because of the increase in volume there, plus the decrease in the number of containers that are there.
Are we still taking furniture and stuff like that from the convenience centers though, and taking it to the landfill to be hauled to Morristown?
That I'm not sure. I mean, we've got open top containers right now at 2570 Centerview, Cosby, Royal Springs.
Right now, because of the coronavirus, we are not accepting mattresses or any type of fabric like couches and things like that, but we have been taking like wooden furniture, desks, dressers and things like that, but nothing to where they would have to manhandle them and get maybe face to face with it.
Okay, thank you.
I think that some decisions kind of that need to be talked about and made is if we do go with compactors at all of the centers, and some of them I think GFL has proposed too at some of the busiest centers and larger centers. But this plan that GFL proposes is only works if we take the pans away from all those centers. And I know that the solid waste board was kind of iffy on that. They didn't really want to take those away. So we got to talk somewhere that decision has to be made. I don't know who makes that. And then also the city and Irish Cut, we talked about putting compactors there, but according to Chan, in order to do that, we would have to actually we'd have to add employees to there. So that also has to be a decision to make, whether we leave pans there and don't hire somebody or put compactors in and hire people. So
Your first proposal that was in the packet has compactors at Irish Cut, the main landfill, and at the city, but you'd want to add cost of employees to that. The one they handed out at the CLB meeting the last time removes those two. Doesn't shut them down. There was some confusion. It doesn't shut them down. It leaves them as they are. They just don't have a compactor.
Well, my understanding of the compactors, when you talk about leaving pans and compactors there, if you're leaving pans, to me, the onus is back on GFL because they have the sensors on the compactors that lets them know when they're getting full. So we shouldn't have an overflow problem, correct? Is that right, Steve?
That's correct. We're looking to put monitoring systems on all the compactors to give us advance notice before they get full so that we can get there and swap them out. And that's how we would service them. We wouldn't just directly haul them to the landfill and bring an empty box back. We would come with an empty box and swap the full one out while we're there. That way the compactor can remain going. It may be a 5 to 10 minute period where nobody can use the compactor while we're doing that, but that would be our method of providing that service.
Okay, so that should alleviate the problem of the overflow, which means you don't, to me, you wouldn't need pans. Now, I know we've had some people wanting pans, but I don't see the issue if you've got the compactors with the sensors. And like I said, that it'll notify them. We won't have to call them.
That's correct.
I think the main issue is the public's willingness to use the compactors versus the pans.
Well, if they don't have a choice, they'll have to be willingness. I mean, if there's not a pan there, they'll have to use the compactors. And just like in any other county, we're going to be no different from any other county. They're all going to compactors. Hello?
I will say that other counties just rely solely on compactors. No one else that I can think of in many years that have compactors at the convenience sites actually have front load cans there as well.
So we're the last county to do this. That's what you're trying to tell us, Steve?
Well, it's probably not the last, but the only one that I know of so far.
I can jump in there real quick. This is Travis with GFL. I cover North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee, and we manage several of these convenience site type contracts. And this is a unique one in that there are front load dumpsters. There's just so many more benefits to migrating to compaction equipment because it reduces the amount of truck time and essentially can provide cost benefit as a result of that. You know, you're talking about compacted waste at pickup point, and that's more efficient collection. And essentially you're getting better aesthetics as well at your facilities with this type of application. So that's the other benefit too. And from a safety perspective, you know, when our truck's on site dumping 20 to 30 dumpsters, that's 20 to 30 times he's got to back up. And that's a whole lot of risk and liability associated with it, especially with users around there not maybe paying attention to what our drivers are doing too. So there's just some other benefits of why a lot of counties across that footprint that I'm describing has migrated to this over the years.
I'll just reiterate what I said. If they've got the sensors on the compactors, I don't see any need for the pans. I mean, that's because they're going to always use the pan first if it's there.
And I know, I think the Solid Waste Committee had a question for us, I guess, on the performance standpoint. And, you know, that's a requirement that's in the form of, you know, constructing the contract that can be ironed out, that's mutually agreed upon. You know, with these monitors, we feel that we could provide this service to you all with, I'm not going to guarantee perfect status, but I can tell you that this is going to put us into a spot where we can, you know, if we have an issue, we can recover from it quickly. And, you know, if those prolong and become a recurring issue, the contract will hold us to the fire in regards to that. And we're comfortable with putting that language into the contract.
I personally would like to have something like that inter contract over the later Thanksgiving Day holidays. The one convenience center in my district at Wilton Springs, there was a big problem in getting someone out there to empty the 40-yard, the compactor and all the pans. It went on for over a week. They were turning people away. And, you know, if we called for several days and couldn't get anybody out there to do it, and, you know, so it kind of affects my confidence in your ability to do this personally.
Mr. Clevenger, when was that? Because that's the first I've heard of an issue at Wilton Springs over the Thanksgiving.
It was around Thanksgiving the whole week. They actually had to throw the trash in the 40-yard dump. There was so many bags, you couldn't get another bag in the 40-yard. The compactor was down for a day or two, and pretty much every pan was full. I called Chan about it, and it was several days before they got out there and emptied them.
Okay, I'll check on that. Like I say, it's the first I've heard about that, but we typically respond, you know, very quickly. I do know that Wilton Springs, you know, when we started this, they had 31 containers out there, and now they're down to 6. So those 6 fill up pretty fast, but it should have been addressed immediately. So
not Wilton Springs. I'm sorry, it's on the Morrell Springs. Morrell Springs.
Okay. Well, I will see what happens, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Steve, what's the life expectancy of a compactor? Because after the 10 years, if we went with a 10-year plan, those would be our compactors, correct?
That's correct. We, in the environment that they're being put in as far as just compacting household solid waste, I would expect a 20-year life expectancy out of the compactors. They're purchased new, they're maintained for the, course of their life, which we take that burden upon ourselves. Over 10 years, we provide preventive maintenance to it, fix whatever's wrong with it, maintain it in a fashion where when the county does take it over, that it's in as good a shape as it can possibly be when y'all take it.
Steve, I was under the understanding that the compactors we have in place right now, did you say in that last meeting that they're into their life cycle? Because I didn't think they'd been there all that long.
Well, the one at Del Rio is actually, I think it's called a tri-pack.
Recorded.
And I think that was actually manufactured in probably the 80s. We do have a couple that are at the end of their life, but I do believe when Cobb County was compactors were first installed under the agreement back in before Waste Industries got involved, I believe. Y'all didn't get new equipment. What you got?
That's correct, Steve. Yeah, we acquired this through an acquisition, and we found that there was several assets that were already mid-life that were applied to many of the convenience site contracts from an equipment standpoint. So the equipment that you have was already used when it was actually put into place, compared to this equipment being brand new off the shelf that we're proposing here in this scenario.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for that information. Did anybody else know that? Mayor, did you know that? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I didn't hear it either.
I knew that, I did not know that it was used. I was not sure this was prior to me, but I did know I assume based on what they said was the shelf life, especially about the one in Del Rio being as old as it was. That, it had really had some wear before we got it, or they really used it a lot up there based on how much shelf life they said it had left.
Yeah, there's vendors out there that will remanufacture this equipment, and at that point it has a reduced shelf life at that time, and that was our findings here of where this vendor was supplying this equipment when we started diving a little bit deeper into it. So that's, you're comparing a little bit different equipment status here. We're putting brand new machines in, and I can tell you Marathon equipment is the best equipment that's out there. I have machines that I know of from the early 90s that were still operating at facilities, apartment complexes that are compacting similar waste to what's going into these containers.
Steve, also, I got one other little thing I want to ask you about. I had mentioned the transfer station at the city, and you said you wasn't able to operate a tractor and bringing a walk-off pan in there without the tractor sticking out in the road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm just going on what they said. This is what came, I think, when Dean was still there. They got a tractor trailer from ConAgra, tried to demonstrate and run it through there, and they said it worked. Now, is your setup going to be different from a regular tractor trailer? Is the walk-off pan longer than that, or?
I'll be honest, all of that occurred before I got here, and I've never really taken a look at the transfer station there. I just know that when we backed in, from what I was told, when we backed in a walking floor trailer, which the trailer has to be the length of the hopper that they're loading over the wall into. Correct. That the front of the truck was out in the street and that it could not make the turn to get out of there. That is, that's what was explained to me. And quite honestly, Mr. Verdahl, I never really went there and took a look at the situation or anything because all of that was resolved prior to me getting here.
I would like to kind of revisit that sometime and see if we just need to do a demonstration, see if it would work or not. Because my understanding is we could put 2 compactors from the centers and at least 2 into a walk-off trailer, and that would cut down immensely on windshield time. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
Well, I mean, it's not that far to get it to our landfill, and usually a transfer station is something that's pretty far from a landfill. I think the intent of that transfer station was just for the city of Newport to use. And we would still continue the hauling from the convenience centers there, because when you think about Cosby, for instance, pulling it all the way to Newport, maybe, I mean, it's something that I would have to take a look at. I've never looked at that, so I'm sorry. I'm just kind of.
Well, yeah, I understand we'd have to reach an agreement with the city and work out scheduling, even if we tried it, because I know at one time they had talked about taking ConAgra's waste, but it's too much of a mess, so that wouldn't work at the time. But anyway, we'll talk about that later down the road. I was just curious.
Hey, David and
Thank
Steve, we actually did a trial run. That's the county's transfer station. The county got that through a grant. So that is county property. I don't really know the exacts of why they put it in, whether it was for city, county, ConAgra, what. But one of the issues, and Steve, you may want to look back and see, and I'll look through my emails. One of the issues, aside from possibly the pulling out or the transfer trucks, the leachate this container that's there is very, very small. They were having, when we did like a 6-week or something trial run, and they were having to come up there multiple times a day to pump that because it won't hold anything. So, and then there was something about maybe there's a brush guard at the top that it is missing some parts, or it wasn't working properly. So if you're going to explore it, look at both of those things as well. And I'll look back through my email and find that and try to send it to you, Steve.
Okay, and I'll reach out to John, who was here prior to me getting here, and see what he's got on it.
Okay. Anybody want to talk about the actual proposals and what we've got on there? Do we want to have a joint meeting with, I know we're trying not to have as many meetings since we've had some things going on at the courthouse, but you've got Waste Industries that's or GFL that's made a proposal on the actual convenience centers. We've got McGill that wants to make a proposal about the actual landfill. Us and then the solid waste board. Do you all want to meet and everybody with all interested parties at the same time? Because we've been, seeing what's your all's pleasure.
I'll interject. McGill Associates is supposed to get us that proposal for what we might want as part of the study, and they said that they can make it as narrow as just whether, just those 3 things I talked about earlier, or as broad as whether we should hire more staff and get our own haulers, and it could be as broad or as narrow as we want it to be, and they're going to send that to us this month. We're going to talk about it at our solid waste meeting on the first Monday of January, and we're getting Mark Cathy on the agenda for the CLB meeting in January as well. So there's that information for whatever decision y'all make.
Mayor, are you asking, do we need to have a joint session of Congress basically? Are you asking for all the groups to meet together?
I'm just asking if that's what you all would like to, I mean, what would you all like to see? Because we started out with just this proposal. Now we have another proposal, and we've been looking at this one started out with Parrotsville. We've been looking at this for about 4 months, I guess. So I'm just wondering what you all need, what you all want to have more information or to feel comfortable with moving forward.
I think at some point, whenever we do have the next meeting, it would be good if we was all together. That'd keep everybody on the same page.
Yes.
And that way you're going to have input from everybody involved in it. Can I ask the lady from McGill a question? And I apologize, I don't know your name, ma'am. I can't remember your name, but if we went ahead and opened up that second part of the landfill, the C&D landfill, when it comes to the equipment, how do the other landfills handle that? Do they buy the equipment outright, or do they rent it, or how do they do it? Other landfills, do you know?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. I'm sorry.
That's all right. My name is Jillian.
Okay.
I think the biggest issue for that landfill, in my opinion, is the timeline, because this landfill has been like a decade in the works trying to get all this permitting and paperwork together, and 15-ish years until we would have to do this again. So we need to make sure whatever plan that we create, I feel like we need something more sustainable than just 15 years. I don't know if any of us will be in any position of responsibility or power by that point, but somebody is going to be, and I'd like for them to be in a healthier position than what we are in right now, because it's kind of a mess. So there's a lot of factors as far as the equipment that we might need, whether we're going to rent or buy it, the staff that we're going to need, and what direction we're heading in the overall picture. And I feel like we don't really have any type of master plan that is, we don't have any type of master plan. We need something that is kind of a long-term picture that we can say, you know, we're all confident that this is a good direction to move in. I feel like we're living paycheck to paycheck right now. Like, this just ain't it.
But this is the time we got to do something at this point where we can't keep going. We got to, bite the bullet and make a decision. I understand. I just know that at equipment that they use at the landfill, that stuff can get expensive. The Caterpillar equipment, you're talking some bucks. And
for what our operation is currently, I believe Chandler has got us to a point where everything is usable, as far as like the equipment to upkeep what we currently have. For the future, I feel like that's something that's going to need to be done by either Miguel or Heather or whoever is in a position to confidently make financial estimations on what direction we need to go in, because that is one aspect of what we're going to need is equipment to move all that stuff around.
right. Okay. Thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't remember your name. I apologize.
You also think she's with McGill and Associates, not.
What?
He said
David,
he
she's on
thought you were with McGill.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, she's with solid waste, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, I misspoke. I apologize.
That's
sorry.
all right. Forrest and I were making fun of you in our heads.
It's okay. I'm used to it. I'm married.
Actually, it's by text, but so
My sugar's high. My sugar's high. I have an excuse. Sorry about that, ma'am.
I don't want to just push. I don't want to just continue to kick the can down the road, so to speak. But I do think that we need to. I think if we can get all these parties together, because I think there's some concerns that we know that are coming out of solid waste. I know that there are some things with GFL. In the comments over here, one of the things like Forrest was talking about, and maybe we also. I don't want to say it, but maybe that's even a Scott Gibson question, Heather, that we look about the cost effectiveness, if we just buy everything outright and because right now interest rates are really, really low. That is something, to consider. Like, could that be a cost saving measure, which was a good one. I'm just wondering, can we meet next month whenever that solid waste board meets? You all meet at 5 o'clock or at 6 o'clock? We just do all that as a joint and push all this down. And again, like I said, I don't particularly want to kick the can down the road, but it seems like that may be a better option.
It's going to be the first Monday at 6 p.m.
See, can we schedule that for then, May or in April? I'm just, assuming that that's the pleasure of everybody here. I don't know. Because I still feel like there's a lot of information that's out there that, like, it's real hard to make a decision on this proposal without kind of knowing a little bit more from McGill and Associates too. I mean, I do think that there is that, even though they are separate, they're separate entities. I don't know if anybody else sees it differently. I feel like that's something we need to consider together. Am I wrong about that?
Well, I feel like Heather or somebody else might have the exact information on how many months we have left on our current contract with GFL. So it's not like a today decision that needs to be made. I feel like we need to get our ducks in a row and make an informed decision. And I was a little skeptical at first whenever McGill made that proposal for us to do a study, but after they talked more, it, made me realize how much we don't know, and the stakes are pretty high with this decision. So I feel like even if we don't get them to do the study, we could do a study in-house or choose somebody else to do the study, but more information is needed to make an informed decision on this. And 10 years is a long time to have a contract. And even if we decided to go with that 10-year contract, I feel like there needs to be very specific verbiage that holds them to a performance standard. I don't know, 10 years is just a really long time to commit professionally to a service like that.
If I could, I believe the 10 years was because we were financing the compactor construction for that long. If we do decide to go ahead and buy this out for ourselves, I believe that would give us some options as far as how long we enter a contract for. Also, I would recommend, I reached out to CTAS today, Miss Rhea, I believe, what is her name? We should get some input from them. Kim Rhea, she is the expert solid waste consultant for CTAS. I've spoke to her several times in the past about this. We're not the first county to ever have this problem. There's other counties that found better solutions to what we're doing now. That's something we don't do well, because every county around us has had compactors for years, and yet we're still not using them. And we need to find or get an expert in here, listen to what they say, and then follow the guidelines for once. That's just my thoughts here, because people have already solved this problem. We just can't seem to get together and solve it for whatever reason.
I agree. And one thing to keep in mind is if we do not do the 10-year contract, we might be the people who are responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep and all that on the compactors. So that's another responsibility and financial commitment on our part that we'll need to put into our decision.
I think they were warranted for 10 years, if I ain't mistaken. What's the warranty on the compactors?
I believe the Marathon warranty is going to be 3 to 5 years. But in our proposal, we would have taken care of them for the whole 10 years. But
Steve, I think that drops from just, it's labor and parts for, I think, the first 3 years, but then it drops just to parts only. So you're going to have the cost of labor associated with hiring a technician or someone along those lines of putting them through the compactor schooling, because they're technical pieces of machinery that we have to keep our techs up to speed on, almost like a mechanic for any vehicle.
Okay, so joint meeting on the first Monday of January, 6 o'clock, with GFL, McGill and Associates, all the commission, Solid Waste Board, and Rhea and some of them from the state, because the state already talked about various options that we may look at, and I'm sure they're definitely, as Forrest said, interested in what we do there as far as sustainability. Anybody else need invited to this party?
Or it will be virtual, or we're going to be doing it in person?
I think it would almost have to be in person, and we
That's
may
what I
have
was
to see
thinking.
about having it at the auditorium, just so we have enough room. especially between a lot of different parties involved and the amount of money that anything could cost, whichever route you take, whatever you probably need to have it in person and at the auditorium, and we can check on that.
I agree. Okay, it'd be good.
I've already got the courtroom scheduled, so if we need to change that venue, will you let me know or go ahead and change that for me?
I
Yes.
will, I will check on that for the auditorium because I've done that so far for us, and I will go on ahead and do that through that way. You all may, just as an aside, but related to that, you all may have gotten the message. We were initially had the discussion about doing a virtual meeting this month, but then we kind of decided that we would just give it at the auditorium for those people who don't feel comfortable. They can continue to Zoom in. I think I have a little bit better way of doing it. Like with this laptop, it's a little bit easier than it was just on a phone. So I think that will ease that up a little bit, as long as, it's not everybody. We still have to do things as everything as a roll call vote unless everyone is there. But at least that does provide lots of room. I mean, that auditorium can hold a lot of people and still leave plenty of room for social distancing and, for everybody to feel safe. So I feel like that's probably your best option. That's why we're still kind of trying to go that route.
Thank you.
But I will check on that date.
April, did you catch all of that, of who we need to invite and everything?
I did. It's already on the calendar.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Crystal, if I may, I see in the chat that there was, I think, some conversation between Mr. Clevenger and Mr. Blazer. I just want to remind you all that we did provide an option where if you all wanted to put the electrical and do all the upfront installation costs, that could be a significant amount of savings for you all, and still burden us with the maintenance on the compactors through that. So that's something you might want to consider through your evaluation there.
We would still pour the pads though, right?
Yes, it would be pouring the pads and, if you want to hire your own contractor to do so and getting the electrical set up adequately, we definitely give you all the details associated with that. We spent a lot of time with some vendors trying to get some pricing on that included in this proposal.
I think if nobody objects, and April, if you will help me out with this, let's get some contact information from the state, from McGill, give them Steve and Travis's information, and send out everybody on the commission, the solid waste board, contact information, and let them, as y'all are looking over the proposals, or if you have questions on the landfill side of things or the convenience center side of things, go ahead and reach out to GFL or McGill or the state, and maybe try to have your questions in advance to them. That way we can expedite the meeting next week or next month, and we don't have to, well, let's go back and review it in February. I mean, I know things may come up then too. I'm not saying, don't ask any questions then or don't have any for then, but let's go ahead, and if we know things are going to come up or there's things that we want to know more about, let's go ahead and be working on that between now and the 4th. That way we can maybe expedite this and go ahead and bring it on through. And I'll get that out to you this week.
Thank you.
Also, just as a sidebar, I'll reach out to Marathon to see if they can hold their pricing on the compactors, because they are forecasting a price increase of steel after the first of the year. Also, the contractors that we had talked to, apparently there's some increase that could happen after the first with some electrical. But I'll reach out to them and talk to them and see if they can at least wait until after we have this meeting on the first Monday of January before they have to pass those through. So.
Do you all want me to see if Scott Gibson from Cumberland Securities can join us at this meeting as well, or is that too soon? We want to wait, want to bring him in?
My thought is, why don't we have just Heather carry on a conversation with that and just see what our likelihood of financing would be. I don't know that he needs to be there I mean, like, she can get, it's a short version of what that's going to be. I mean, is it something that we would be able to get, and what kind of a rate are we looking at? I mean, I know they can't give a specific, exact till they take the bonds to market or whatever, that case. But I think that if we could just have an idea, that's all we would need on that part of it.
All right, thank you.
If we wanted to, we could join us electronically. That probably would be okay. That would be an option.
Yeah, I'll get with him. Just another thing to think about, there is a new presidential candidate coming in at the first of the year, and we don't know what the market will do. So
Anything else from anybody?
I move we adjourn.
We got a motion to adjourn. Anybody gonna second it?
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, who was that?
That was me, Dan
Pete.
Wright.
Thank you.
Pete.
Thank y'all.
Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys.